Hi everyone, it's Kathy. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I'll be sharing how to create a slimline card, and I am going to be featuring the new slimline pocket die that was just released. I'll also be using the Birthday Dragon Party stamp set as well as the New Year Dragon stamp set. I'm not going to share all of the coloring because it took quite some time to color in these little dragons, but I did want to show bits and pieces of it, particularly the underpainting. So this dragon here is from the New Year Dragon stamp set. I stamped him onto a piece of Cougar Super Smooth cardstock using Memento Tuxedo black ink, and the cardstock measures 3 1/4 by 8 1/4. After I had him stamped out, I came in with B00, and that's the color I used to do the underpainting. I added the B00 in the areas on the dragon where the shadows are going to be the deepest and the darkest. The reason that I used the B00 as the underpainting color is so that it would desaturate the YR07, which is my darkest orange. And the best way to explain the desaturation is that it's the same color, it just changes the value of the color, so it makes it a little bit deeper and almost muddy, which is not a bad thing in this case. Anyway, after I was done adding in the B00, I did go over that with the YR07, and I did go directly over the B00 with the YR07, but then I also extended past it, just so that there would be that slight differentiation between the desaturated color because of the B00 and the actual true color of the YR07. The next color that I had come in with was YR04, and I blended directly over the YR07 and extended out with the YR04, and that is my midtone. I did leave some little bits of white space here and there. I did leave more white space just on the tip of his nose so that there would be a nice highlight there. And then I came in with YR02 and filled in all the white spaces. I will make sure to have all of the Copic colors that I used listed in the description box below for you. Including the colors that I used for the balloons and the horns and their little spikes on their back. For the second dragon, and this little guy is from the Birthday Party Dragon stamp set, I also stamped him on Cougar Super Smooth cardstock with Memento Tuxedo black ink. And for the underpainting on him, I used R43. And I did the same thing. I added the R43 in the areas where the shadows would be the deepest and the darkest. And then I came in with my BG18. I went directly over the R42 and extended past with the B18, again, just so that there would be a differentiation between the desaturated BG18 and then the true color of the BG18. The next color I came in with for my midtone was BG57. I blended over the BG18 and extended out further. And again, I filled in almost all the dragon. You'll see that I left some white space in sort of weird little areas, but those are the areas where I wanted the highlights to be very prominent. Again, on this little guy, I also did the top of his nose with a nice bright highlight, and then along his arm and his back leg. And getting back to the underpainting just a little bit, I did want to mention that it does take some getting used to. When I first started doing the underpainting, I wasn't really sure if I really liked how it looked because it did muddy up those colors. But I did find that if I walked away from whatever it was that I was working on and came back to it, when the ink is completely dry and has had a chance to settle into the cardstock, it's not as noticeable that I used, for example, on this one, a red marker to do my underpainting. I don't really know how to explain it, but it just works. So it is something that I've been practicing a lot more lately, and I have done a couple of other videos where I've done underpainting, and I'll make sure to link to those at the end of this video for you as well. And now that I've had a chance to really practice it some more, I really do like what the underpainting does for the images. Back to the coloring. To finish up this little guy, I did come in with BG13 and colored in the white space, and I did also go over the areas that I had previously colored as well. Off camera, I had stamped and cut out a mask for this little dragon here because I wanted to do a little bit of stenciling on this panel, and the stencil that I'm using is called Beaded Curtain, I lined it up just to make sure that the lines or the stripes were straight. I used a little bit of painter's tape to hold my cardstock in place, and then I blended with yellow ink and an ink blending brush directly over the stencil. Once I got down towards the bottom of the stencil, I just lifted it off my panel and scooched it down a little bit, and then I used some washi tape to hold the stencil in place so I could stencil the bottom part of that piece of cardstock. I had also cut a piece of cardstock to 5.5 by 3.25 inches, and I placed that on the main card panel, and I also placed the pocket on top of that so I could line up a die from the Grass and Cloud Edger die set so that I could die cut the white piece of cardstock because I want that piece to slide into the pocket when I'm all done. But in order to do that, I had to line everything up, make sure that I was going to be die cutting it in just the right place. Then I had to line it back up on my card panel because I wanted to add the stenciling on the piece that I had die cut as well. And once I had the stripes lined up, I wasn't worried about the little dots. I just needed the stripes to line up. I very carefully took that off my main panel and set that aside so that I could do the stenciling on the die cut piece of cardstock. Next, it was time to cut my little pocket. And I really like this die because it does have a piece that's cut out of the center that you can add in a separate die so it'll actually cut a window. Without that separate piece, it would just cut the pocket solid. So there's options with this die, which I think is always fun. It also embosses the score lines for you on your pocket so you don't have to guess where to fold. I do like to fold along those score lines backwards and then go in the opposite direction that they're actually supposed to fold. And when I fold it back in the correct direction that they're supposed to go, that's when I come in with my bone folder to burnish those score lines really very well. One tip I have is after you get the initial scoring done, close up those sides and run a bone folder on those corners, and that flattens them out really very nicely. Because the piece that I had die cut with the Cloudy Edger die is going to pull up and reveal a gift card, I wanted to make sure that my gift card didn't move around or slide around or fall out of the window. So I used a piece of acetate and just did a rough sketch of the top curved line so I could cut it down to fit behind that window. I adhered the acetate to my little pocket with some liquid glue. And then I added some double-sided tape to the flaps of my pocket. For my card base, I cut a piece of yellow cardstock to 3.5 by 8.5, and I was just about to adhere my pocket, and then I remembered that I needed to put my little dragon down first. So I just used my double-sided tape to adhere that to the card base itself. Then I was able to adhere my little pocket in place. And one thing that I'm very guilty of is coming up with an idea in my head, but I don't think it through all the way to the very end. So when I got to this part, I had to really think about how I was going to get this little dragon adhered to the front and have him overlap the front of the pocket, but I had to find a way to hide the foam tape. And I did want to use foam tape on the dragon because it would be easier to pull him up and out of the pocket if he was raised up. So I had to fiddle and fuss a little bit with the dragon to make sure that I got the foam tape in just the right place, and decided to add a third piece of foam tape so that it would be behind his legs. Otherwise, that would have collapsed on the front, and I didn't want that to happen either. Then I thought, how are they going to know to pull up this little dragon if there's no instructions? So I pulled out the Halloween Postage stamp set, and it has these tiny little words in there like pull here, push there type of words. So I just stamped the word pull using Versafine Onyx black ink on one of the yellow balloons because I thought that that's where it would stand out the most, especially because it was the center balloon. Then I removed the release paper from the foam tape and added my little dragon to the top of that. Off camera, I stamped the sentiment Happy Birthday onto a piece of yellow cardstock and ran it through with a fishtail banner die and used liquid glue to adhere that to the front of the card. Now, to get the gift card in the pocket and to keep it hidden until the pull-out piece is pulled up, I did use some temporary adhesive on the back of the gift card, put that in the pocket and pressed it down so that it would stay in place. And then I put my little pull-up piece back in the pocket, and that's it. That finishes up my card for today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, we'd love it if you would. And don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.